Hey there, and welcome back to the channel. Today we are sharing the story of one of the most remarkable figures in early Islamic history, a man who had nothing the world valued, yet became someone history never forgot. This is the story of Bilal ibn Rabah, and trust me, this one is worth knowing. Bilal ibn Rabah was born in Mecca at a time when your value as a person was decided before you even had a chance to prove yourself. If you had a powerful tribe behind you, you were protected. If you had wealth and a respected family name, doors opened for you. But if you had none of those things, life was a very different experience. Bilal had none of those things. He was enslaved, and in the eyes of Meccan society, that placed him at the very bottom. The leaders of Quraysh held all the power, and someone like Bilal had almost no way to defend himself against them. But here is what makes his story different from so many others. Islam did not wait for Bilal to become powerful before it valued him. It did not ask about his tribe, his wealth, or his family name. Faith saw something in him that the world around him refused to see, and that would change everything. Accepting Islam in Mecca was not a simple or safe decision. The city was controlled by powerful families who had defended their idols and their traditions for generations. To stand against that took something extraordinary. But the early believers did exactly that. They were few, they were vulnerable, and many of them had very little protection from the people who wanted to stop Islam from spreading. Bilal was one of them. For someone in his position, with no tribe to stand behind him and no wealth to protect him, saying yes to Islam meant accepting whatever consequences came with it. And he knew what those consequences could be. Yet he believed. That is what makes his faith so powerful to reflect on. It was not the faith of someone who had nothing to lose. It was the faith of someone who had everything to lose and chose belief anyway. Because true faith is not tested in comfort. It is tested in moments exactly like the ones Bilal faced every single day in the streets of Mecca. And he did not waver. There are moments in history that words struggle to fully describe. What Bilal went through in Mecca was one of those moments. He was tortured, not for a crime, not for causing harm, but simply because he believed in the oneness of Allah and refused to let go of that belief no matter what was done to him. They dragged him out into the scorching desert heat. They pressed a heavy boulder onto his chest. They tried everything they could to break him. And from his lips, through all of that pain, came just two words: Ahad. He was not declaring it to impress anyone. He was not performing for a crowd. Those words were between him and Allah, and no amount of force could stop them from leaving his lips. What makes this moment so powerful is the contrast. Here was a man with no army, no tribe, no shield, and no worldly power whatsoever. By every measure the world uses, he was the weakest person in that situation. Yet he was the one who did not break. After everything he had been through, after the chains, the desert heat, the boulder on his chest, and the years of persecution in Mecca, Bilal was given something no one could have predicted. He was given a voice. Not just any voice, the voice of the Adhan. When the Muslim community had grown and settled in Medina, a decision was made about how to call believers to prayer. And when it came time to choose who would be the first to raise that call, the choice was Bilal. The same lips that whispered, Ahad, in the dust of the Mecca desert, while a boulder pressed down on his chest, were now chosen to carry the most important call in the life of the Muslim community. The same voice they tried to silence was now the voice that would wake up an entire city for Fajr every single morning. The adhan was not simply an announcement. It was an invitation, a daily reminder to every believer that no matter what the world was asking of them, something more important was calling. And it was Bilal's voice that carried that reminder across the rooftops of Medina. It was around the year 632 CE, in the city of Medina, when everything changed. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, had passed away, and for Bilal, that loss was not simply the loss of a leader or a teacher. It was the loss of the man who had seen him when the world refused to look, the man whose faith had made his freedom possible, the man for whom he had raised his voice across the rooftops of Medina every single morning. Some reports tell us that after the Prophet's passing, Bilal found the adhan almost impossible to complete, that the words that had once poured from him so naturally now carried a weight too heavy to bear, because every word reminded him of the one who was no longer there to hear it. And so Bilal left Medina. He traveled to Syria, to the region known as Al-Sham, where he spent much of his remaining years away from the city that held so many memories. He lived until approximately 640 CE, passing away in Damascus at around the age of 60, leaving behind no palace, no fortune, and no army. A name that 14 centuries later is still spoken with deep respect, with a story that reminds every generation of believers that faith is not measured by what you are given in this world. It is measured by what you hold on to when everything is taken from you. Bilal ibn Rabah began his life as a slave in Mecca. He ended it as one of the most honored companions in the history of Islam.
If you made it to the end of this story, you already know it was worth your time. Please like, subscribe, and stay with us. There is much more to come.